Captain Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck's viewport, watching the stars wheel slowly past as the UES Defiance maintained its patrol route along the outer rim of human space. The ship's artificial gravity hummed beneath her feet, a constant reminder of humanity's stubborn refusal to bow to the natural order of the universe. Out here, 300 light-years from Earth, that Defiance felt both precious and fragile. The Defiance was not humanity's largest warship, nor its most advanced, but it was something the galaxy had never seen before. A vessel built entirely from salvaged alien technology, reverse-engineered and repurposed by human ingenuity. Its hull bore the scars of a dozen battles, welded patches of different metals creating a patchwork that would have horrified any alien engineer. To human eyes, it was beautiful. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen from the bridge. "We're receiving a distress signal. It's strange." Elena turned from the viewport, her reflection ghosting across the stars for a moment before disappearing. At 42, she had the weathered look of someone who had spent too many years staring into the void. But her eyes remained sharp, calculating. "Strange how? It's not broadcasting on any frequency we recognize, but our salvaged Kepler translation matrix is picking it up. The source appears to be, well, it's massive, Captain, much larger than anything in our databases." Elena was already moving toward the bridge, her magnetic boots clicking against the deck plating with practiced efficiency. The Defiance had been her command for 3 years now, ever since the Battle of Proxima Station, where her previous ship, the Determination, had been reduced to scrap by a hegemony dreadnought. She'd learned to trust her crew's instincts, especially Chen's. The young officer had an uncanny ability to spot trouble before it found them. The bridge of the Defiance was a study in organized chaos. Consoles from 6 different alien civilizations had been jury-rigged together, their various displays flickering in colors that hadn't been designed for human eyes. The crew wore specialized glasses that filtered the light into more manageable spectrums, giving them all a slightly insectoid appearance. It was another example of human adaptability. Elena reflected, when the universe gave you tools designed for other species, you found a way to make them work. Report. Elena commanded as she settled into her captain's chair, a piece of genuine Earth furniture that looked absurdly out of place among the alien technology. Contact bearing to 7 Mark IV. Distance approximately 40,000 kilometers. Reported Ensign Marcus Webb from the sensor station. His young face was illuminated by the ghostly blue glow of Zephyrian scanning equipment. "Whatever it is, it's big enough to have its own gravity well," Elena frowned. Very few things in space were large enough to generate significant gravitational fields, and most of them were either natural phenomena or the legendary city ships of the extinct precursor civilization. "Any signs of weapons signatures?" "Negative, Captain. In fact, it's not showing any energy signatures at all. It's like it's dead or dormant." Elena murmured, "Set course for the contact. All hands to yellow alert, and get me a full analysis of that distress signal." As the Defiance altered course, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading toward something that would change everything. It wasn't the first time she'd felt that particular brand of unease, and experience had taught her to trust it. The last time had been at Kepler 4 to be, when they'd discovered the crashed Void Walker ship that had provided the technology for humanity's first faster-than-light communications ray. The distress signal itself was haunting when played through the ship's audio system. It was a low, modulated tone that seemed to resonate in the bones of everyone who heard it. "The translation matrix could only parse fragments. Help us, and the darkness comes. And most disturbingly, they are already here." "Captain," Chen said, her voice tight with concern, "I'm getting some very strange readings from the quantum resonance chamber. It's like something is responding to our presence." Elena felt her stomach clench. The quantum resonance chamber was humanity's greatest technological achievement, a device reverse-engineered from captured hegemony technology that allowed for faster-than-light communication and, theoretically, travel. It was also highly experimental and potentially dangerous. The fact that it was responding to an unknown contact was deeply troubling. What kind of response? The quantum field is fluctuating in patterns I've never seen before. It's almost like it's trying to sync with something. Elena made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Power down the quantum resonance chamber. Full shutdown. Emergency protocols. Captain, if we shut down the QRC, we'll lose FTL communications. With command, we'll be completely isolated out here. Better isolated than dead. Commander, do it. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of alien machinery as Chen carried out the order. Elena watched the main display as their target grew larger, and she began to understand why her crew had been so unsettled. The object was enormous, easily 10 kilometers in length, and its surface was a perfect, unbroken black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was beautiful in the way that natural disasters were beautiful, terrible and awe-inspiring in equal measure. Captain, Webb called out, his voice cracking slightly. I'm reading life signs aboard that vessel, thousands of them, but they're not like anything in our databases. Elena stood, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. Elaborate. The biosignatures are complex, layered. It's like there are multiple forms of life existing in the same space, but they're not separate entities. They're connected somehow, symbiotic, maybe, or something else entirely. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If this was a hegemony ship, it was unlike any they'd encountered before. The hegemony consisted of 6 known species, all of whom had been catalogued and studied extensively during humanity's brief and brutal war with them. This was something new, something that predated the current galactic order. Distance to contact, 15,000 kilometers and closing. Elena made another decision that would prove fateful. All stop, launch a reconnaissance probe. Full spectrum analysis, but maintain our distance. The probe, a sleek cylinder built from cannibalized hegemony technology, streaked toward the massive black vessel. Its sensors painted a picture that defied easy explanation. The ship's hull was composed of a material that absorbed electromagnetic radiation across the entire spectrum, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Only the gravitational distortion it created gave away its presence. Captain, Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper. The probe is detecting artificial gravity fields throughout the vessel, not just in the inhabited sections, but everywhere. It's like the entire ship is designed to support life. Elena nodded grimly. Life support on that scale would require incredible amounts of power. Any sign of their power source, that's just it, Captain. There's no detectable power source, no fusion reactors, no antimatter containment, no zero-point energy taps, nothing. It's like the ship is generating power from something we can't detect. The probe's cameras provided the first clear images of the vessel's exterior, and Elena felt her breath catch. The black surface wasn't smooth as it had appeared from a distance. Instead, it was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue. Geometric designs that hurt to look at directly merge with organic curves that suggested growth rather than construction. My God, Webb whispered. It's not built, it's grown. Elena stared at the images, her mind racing. If the ship was biological rather than technological, it would explain the strange life sign readings, but it also raised terrifying questions about its origins and purpose. No known species in the galaxy had the capability to grow vessels of this size, not even the legendary precursors. Captain, Chen said urgently, I'm detecting movement on the vessel's surface. Something is opening. The images from the probe showed sections of the black hull peeling back like flower petals, revealing an interior that glowed with soft, phosphorescent light. The opening was easily large enough to accommodate a ship the size of the Defiance, and as Elena watched, she realized it was shaped like a docking bay. It's inviting us in, she said softly. Captain, I strongly advise against. Elena held up a hand, cutting off Chen's protest. I know the risks, Commander, but think about what we're looking at. This could be the discovery of the century, first contact with a completely unknown species. Technology that could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. We can't just turn away. With respect, Captain, that's exactly what we should do. Call in the fleet. Let the experts handle this. Elena turned to face her second in command, seeing her own doubts reflected in Chen's eyes. And what if it's gone by the time the fleet arrives? What if this is our only chance to make contact? Humanity didn't get this far by playing it safe. Commander, the argument was familiar to everyone on the bridge. Humanity's expansion into the galaxy had been marked by bold decisions and desperate gambles. From the first colony ships that had launched without knowing if their destinations were habitable, to the reverse engineering of alien technology that had given them the tools to fight the hegemony. Human progress had always been built on calculated risks. Bring us closer, Elena ordered. But keep the engines hot and weapons ready. At the first sign of trouble, we're gone. The Defiance approached the massive vessel with all the caution of a mouse. Investigating a sleeping cat, Elena could feel the tension on the bridge. The way her crew's movements became more precise, more deliberate. This was what they trained for, what they lived for. The moment when humanity stepped into the unknown and dared the universe to show them something new. As they drew closer, more details became visible. The docking bay was vast, its walls covered in the same flowing patterns that adorned the ship's exterior. But there was something else, something that made Elena's blood run cold. The patterns were moving, pulsing in rhythm with the distress signal they'd been receiving. Captain, Webb said, his voice tight with fear, I'm detecting massive energy buildup throughout the vessel. Whatever powers this thing, it's waking up. Elena felt the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. Every decision she made in the next few minutes could determine not just the fate of her crew, but potentially the course of human civilization. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people who were counting on explorers like her to find new worlds, new possibilities for humanity's future. Continue approach, she ordered, but be ready to bug out at a moment's notice. The Defiance slipped into the docking bay like a minnow entering the mouth of a whale. Elena watched the hull close behind them, sealing them inside the alien vessel. The phosphorescent walls provided enough light to see by, but everything was cast in an eerie blue-green glow that made the familiar surfaces of her ship look foreign and threatening. Atmosphere analysis, Elena asked. Breathable, surprisingly. Oxygen-nitrogen mix. Slightly higher humidity than Earth standard. Temperature is comfortable for human habitation. It's almost like, Webb paused, checking his readings again. It's almost like the ship is adapting its environment to suit us. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Explain. The atmospheric composition is shifting to match our needs. When we first entered, it was closer to what the Zephyrians breathe. Now it's becoming more Earth-like by the minute. The implications were staggering. If the ship could adapt its environment in real time, it suggested a level of technological sophistication that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Elena found herself wondering if they were dealing with the precursors after all, or something even more ancient and powerful. Captain, Chen said, her voice barely controlled. We're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unmistakably human, but wrong in subtle ways. The cadence was off, the pronunciation to perfect, as if someone had learned the language from a textbook, rather than growing up with it. Welcome, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you for so very long. Elena exchanged glances with her crew, seeing her own mix of excitement and terror reflected in their faces. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Ship Defiance. Who am I speaking with? Names are difficult. Your language lacks the concepts to properly express our identity. You may call us the Shepherds. We are the ones who have watched over your species since your first steps into the void. Elena felt as if the deck had shifted beneath her feet. You've been watching us, guiding, protecting. The galaxy is a dangerous place for young species, Captain Vasquez. Without our intervention, humanity would have been destroyed long ago. I don't understand. We've never encountered your species before, haven't you? The voice carried a note of amusement that sent shivers down Elena's spine. Every time your explorers found a habitable world, every time your researchers made a crucial breakthrough, every time your warriors achieved victory against impossible odds, we were there. Unseen but not absent, Elena's mind raced, trying to process the implications. If this species had been secretly influencing human development, it would explain so many things. The convenient location of habitable worlds along humanity's expansion routes, the seemingly miraculous discoveries of alien technology at crucial moments, the tactical advantages that had allowed humanity to survive its war with the hegemony. Why? Reveal yourselves now, Elena asked. Because the time of guidance is ending, Captain. Humanity has grown beyond the need for shepherds. You are ready to take your place among the elder races of the galaxy. But first, you must prove yourself worthy. Elena felt her hand move instinctively to her sidearm. Prove ourselves how? By demonstrating the qualities that make humanity unique among the species we have encountered. Your courage, your adaptability, your refusal to accept limitations. There's a test, Captain Vasquez, one that will determine whether your species is ready to inherit the legacy of the precursors. The mention of the precursors sent a jolt through Elena. Every spacefaring civilization knew the legends of the ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy, leaving behind ruins and artifacts that still defied understanding. The idea that humanity might be connected to them in some way was both thrilling and terrifying. What kind of test? Elena asked. The same test that all young species must face when they reach this stage of development. You must prove that you can survive the darkness. That is coming. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What darkness? The enemy that destroyed the precursors is stirring again. Captain, it has slept for 10,000 years, but now it awakens. The galaxy will once again face the choice between order and chaos, between life and the void. Humanity must be ready to stand against it. Elena looked around the bridge, seeing the same mixture of awe and fear in her crew's faces. This was beyond anything they had trained for, beyond anything that human civilization had prepared for. They were being asked to stand against a threat that had destroyed the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Why us? Elena asked. Why humanity? Because you are the only species we have encountered that refuses to accept defeat. The Kefir are brilliant but cautious. The Zephyrians are noble but rigid. The Vorthok are powerful but lack imagination. Only humanity possesses the combination of traits necessary to face what is coming. Elena felt the weight of her species' future settling on her shoulders. What do you need from us? Nothing that you cannot freely give. We need you to be what you have always been, human. The test will come in its own time, but first, you must learn. We will teach you what the precursors knew, show you the true nature of the universe, prepare you for the battle ahead. Elena made a decision that would echo through history. We accept. The words had barely left her lips when the ship around them began to change. The walls flowed like liquid, rearranging themselves into new configurations. The floor beneath their feet became transparent, revealing vast chambers filled with impossible geometries. And everywhere, the patterns on the walls began to pulse with new meaning, as if the ship itself was awakening from a long slumber. Captain, Chen said, her voice filled with wonder, I'm detecting massive changes throughout the vessel. It's like the entire ship is transforming. Elena watched in fascination as the docking bay around them expanded, creating space for dozens of ships like the Defiance. The walls displayed images of star charts showing regions of space that no human had ever seen, worlds that seemed to exist in defiance of natural law. And in the center of it all, a holographic display showed the galaxy as it truly was, not the scattered collection of independent civilizations that humanity knew, but a vast, interconnected web of life and intelligence. This is your inheritance. The shepherd's voice said, the knowledge of the precursors, the wisdom of ages. But remember, Captain Vasquez, knowledge without wisdom is destruction. Your species must learn not just what to do, but why to do it. Elena nodded, though she wasn't sure the alien could see her. We understand. Do you? Humanity has a gift for violence that surpasses even the precursors. You have survived where others have perished because you are willing to do what others consider unthinkable. But the enemy you will face cannot be defeated by violence. Alone it feeds on conflict, grows stronger with each battle. You must learn to fight without fighting, to win without destroying. The philosophical implications were staggering, but Elena forced herself to focus on the practical concerns. How long do we have? Time moves differently for beings such as ourselves, in human terms. Perhaps a century before the enemy fully awakens. Enough time to prepare, if you are diligent. But first, you must return to your people and convince them to accept our guidance. Many will resist, will see our intervention as a threat to human independence. Elena could already imagine the reaction of the Earth government. Humanity had fought too hard for its freedom to accept alien guidance easily, even from apparent benefactors. How do we prove what we've learned here? You will carry with you a fragment of our knowledge, encoded in a way that your scientists will recognize as genuine. But more than that, you will carry the truth. And truth, Captain Vasquez, has a way of making itself known. Elena felt something change in her mind, a subtle shift that left her feeling both enlightened and overwhelmed. Images flashed through her consciousness, star maps showing the location of hidden worlds, scientific principles that could revolutionize human technology, and something else, something dark and terrible that lurked at the edge of perception. The enemy, she gasped, understanding flooding through her. It's not just a species. It's something else entirely. Now you begin to understand. The enemy is entropy itself, the force that seeks to return the universe to its primordial state. It has no form, no substance, only purpose. It whispers to civilizations at the height of their power, convincing them to turn their strength against themselves. It feeds on the collapse of order, grows stronger with each civilization that falls. Elena felt her worldview shifting, accommodating new realities that challenged everything she thought she knew about the universe. But how do we fight something like that? By becoming something greater than yourselves. The precursors tried to fight it alone and failed. But you will not be alone. There are others, scattered across the galaxy, who have been preparing for this moment. Species that have learned to put aside their differences and work together. You must unite them, forge an alliance that can stand against the darkness. The scope of the task was overwhelming, but Elena felt a familiar stirring in her chest. It was the same feeling she'd experienced as a child, listening to stories of the first human explorers who had dared to leave Earth behind. The same feeling that had driven her to join the space service, to seek out new worlds and new possibilities for humanity. We'll need ships, she said. More than just the Defiance. Ships you will have. The knowledge we share with you includes the secrets of construction, the ability to grow vessels like this one from the raw materials of space. But remember, Captain, the most powerful weapon is not technology, but understanding. The enemy preys on fear, on the desire for easy answers. You must help your people see beyond their immediate needs to the greater purpose. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What happens next? Next, you return to your people and begin the great work. But know this, Captain Vasquez, the path ahead will not be easy. There will be those who see our gift as a curse, who will try to use our knowledge for their own ends. You must be prepared to stand against them, even if they are your own kind. The warning sent a chill through Elena. She had seen enough of human nature to know that power, even power given with the best intentions, could corrupt. There would be those who would see the shepherd's knowledge as a means to dominate others, who would try to use it to establish their own empires. We'll be ready, she said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Will you? Humanity's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. Your refusal to accept limitations makes you capable of incredible achievements, but it also makes you prone to hubris. The precursors fell because they believed themselves capable of controlling forces beyond their understanding. You must not make the same mistake. Elena felt the ship around her beginning to change again. Preparing for their departure, the walls became opaque once more, and the fantastic visions faded back into the phosphorescent glow of the docking bay. But the knowledge remained, burning in her mind like a beacon. Remember, the shepherd's voice said, growing fainter. The test is not whether you can defeat the enemy, but whether you can remain human while doing so. The galaxy has seen many species rise and fall, but none have possessed your unique combination of wisdom and madness. Do not lose that which makes you who you are. Elena felt the familiar vibration of the Defiance's engines as they prepared to leave the alien vessel. Around her, the crew was silent, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had witnessed. She knew that their lives had been changed forever, that they carried with them knowledge that would reshape human civilization. As the Defiance emerged from the docking bay, Elena watched the massive black ship fade into the distance. But she knew it wasn't really gone, that somewhere out there, the shepherds continued their ancient vigil, waiting for the moment when humanity would either rise to meet its destiny or fall to the darkness that threatened all life in the galaxy. The journey back to Earth would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prepare for the most important report in human history. Elena stood at the observation deck once more, watching the stars wheel past. But now she saw them differently. Each point of light was a potential ally or enemy, a world that might stand with humanity against the coming darkness or fall to the whispers of entropy. Chen joined her at the viewport, her face troubled. "Captain, do you think we made the right choice?" Elena considered the question, weighing the possibilities. "I don't know, Commander, but I know we made the human choice. We saw the unknown and chose to embrace it rather than run from it. That's what we do, what we've always done. And if we're wrong, if this is some kind of trap," Elena smiled, feeling a familiar surge of defiance, "then we'll deal with that too. Humanity didn't survive this long by avoiding risks. We survived by taking them and making them pay off." The Defiance continued its journey through the void, carrying its crew and their incredible cargo of knowledge toward a future that none of them could fully imagine. Behind them, the black ship faded into the darkness, but its message burned bright in their minds. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would be at the center of that change. Elena thought about the crew under her command, about the billions of people on Earth who were counting on explorers like her to find new possibilities for humanity's future. She thought about the alien entity that had spoken to them, claiming to be humanity's shepherd and guardian. Most of all, she thought about the enemy that was stirring in the darkness, the force that had destroyed the precursors and now threatened to do the same. To every other species in the galaxy, the test was coming, and humanity would either prove itself worthy of the precursors' legacy or join them in extinction. Elena had no doubt which outcome she intended to fight for, but she also knew that the choice would ultimately belong to humanity as a whole. All she could do was deliver the message and hope that her species would have the wisdom to listen. As the stars streamed past the viewport, Elena began to plan. The first step would be convincing the Earth government to take the threat seriously. Then would come the harder task of uniting humanity behind a common cause, of setting aside the petty conflicts that had plagued their species since the dawn of civilization. Finally, they would need to reach out to the other species of the galaxy, to forge the alliance that the shepherds had spoken of. It was an impossible task, but Elena had learned long ago that impossibility was just another challenge to be overcome. Humanity had gone from a single world to a spacefaring civilization. In less than a century, they had reverse-engineered alien technology, survived a war with a superior enemy, and now stood on the brink of becoming something greater than they had ever imagined. The black ship had shown them the path, but the journey was theirs to make, and Elena Vasquez, captain of the UES Defiance, was ready to lead them into the unknown once more, armed with nothing but human courage and the unshakable belief that no challenge was too great. For those who refused to accept defeat, the universe was vast and full of wonders and terrors in equal measure, but it had never faced anything quite like humanity before. And Elena had a feeling that the galaxy was about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. The test was coming, and humanity would meet it in the only way they knew how, head-on, with eyes wide open and weapons ready. In the depths of space, the black ship continued its ancient vigil, waiting for the moment when its shepherds would become warriors, when the students would become teachers, and when the galaxy would discover whether the human spirit was strong enough to stand against the darkness that threatened to consume everything they held dear. The first section of humanity's greatest test had begun. 3 weeks later, Elena stood before the United Earth Defense Council in Geneva, facing the most skeptical audience of her career. The chamber was a marvel of human engineering, its curved walls displaying real-time data from across human space, but the faces staring back at her showed only doubt and suspicion. Admiral Morrison, the Council's military liaison, leaned forward with barely concealed hostility. "Captain Vasquez, you're asking us to believe that an unknown alien species has been secretly manipulating human development for centuries, and that we're about to face a cosmic threat that destroyed the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Do you understand how that sounds?" Elena had expected this reaction. The truth was almost too incredible to believe, even for someone who had lived through it. "I understand your skepticism, Admiral, but I have evidence." She activated the holographic display, showing the assembled council members images from the black ship. The flowing, organic patterns on the walls seemed to move even in the recording, creating an unsettling effect that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "These are the ship's interior spaces," Elena continued. "Notice the adaptive technology, the atmosphere, temperature, and even the gravitational fields adjusted to accommodate human physiology in real time. This level of technological sophistication is beyond anything we've encountered." Director Sarah Kim, the Council's chief scientist, studied the images with professional interest. "The patterns are fascinating, but they could be explained by advanced nanotechnology. As for the atmospheric adaptation, several species in the hegemony have similar capabilities." Elena had anticipated this objection as well, perhaps, but this can't be explained by conventional technology. She activated the next sequence, showing the transformation of the ship's interior during their conversation with the shepherds. The walls flowed like liquid, creating impossible geometries that defied the laws of physics. "The ship didn't just adapt to our presence," Elena explained. "It became something else entirely. The mass displacement alone should have been impossible, but our sensors confirmed that the ship's total mass remained constant." Throughout the transformation, the council members exchanged glances, their skepticism wavering slightly. Elena pressed her advantage, activating the final piece of evidence. "But this is what convinced me that we're dealing with something beyond our understanding." The display showed the star charts that had appeared during their encounter, revealing the galaxy. As the shepherds saw it, the familiar constellations were there, but they were connected by streams of energy that pulsed with life. Entire regions of space that appeared empty to human sensors were revealed to be teeming with activity. These charts show the location of 17 previously unknown civilizations, Elena said. "We've already confirmed the existence of 3 of them using our deep space sensors." The shepherds didn't just claim to have knowledge of the galaxy's hidden civilizations. They proved it. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If the star charts were accurate, it meant that humanity's understanding of the galaxy was fundamentally incomplete. There were entire civilizations out there that had managed to remain hidden from all known sensors and detection methods. Admiral Morrison was the first to speak. "Assuming this is all genuine, what exactly are these shepherds asking from us?" Elena felt a weight settle on her shoulders. "They want us to prepare for a war unlike anything we've ever faced. The enemy they describe feeds on conflict and chaos. Traditional military tactics won't work against it. We need to unite not just humanity, but all the species in the galaxy." "Unite against what, exactly?" asked Counselor Martinez, the representative from the outer colonies. "You've shown us impressive holographics, but you haven't explained what this enemy actually is." Elena closed her eyes, remembering the terrible visions that had filled her mind during the encounter. "It's not a species in any conventional sense, it's entropy itself, given form and purpose. It whispers to civilizations at the height of their power, convincing them to turn their strength against themselves. It feeds on the collapse of order, grows stronger with each civilization that falls." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena could see the doubt returning to their faces, the natural human tendency to reject information that challenged their worldview. She had expected this, but it was still frustrating. "Captain," Director Kim said carefully, "what you're describing sounds more like a philosophical concept than a physical threat. How do we fight an abstract force? By becoming something greater than ourselves," Elena replied, echoing the shepherd's words. "The precursors tried to fight it alone and failed. But we won't be alone. There are others, scattered across the galaxy, who have been preparing for this moment. We need to find them, unite them, and forge an alliance that can stand against the darkness." Admiral Morrison stood abruptly. "Captain, I've heard enough. What you're proposing is a complete restructuring of human military doctrine based on the claims of an unknown alien species. Even if I believed your story, the Council cannot authorize such a radical change in policy without more concrete evidence." Elena felt her heart sink. She had known this moment would come, but it still stung to see the doubt in their faces. "What kind of evidence would convince you?" "Something more than holographic recordings and philosophical speculation," Morrison replied. "We need proof that this threat is real, that it poses a genuine danger to human civilization. Until then, the Defense Council cannot support your recommendations." Elena looked around the chamber, seeing the same skepticism reflected in every face. These were good people, dedicated to protecting humanity, but they were bound by the limitations of their own experience. They had fought the hegemony and won, and they believed that victory had proven the superiority of human military doctrine. The idea that their greatest challenge lay ahead was almost impossible for them to accept. "There's something else," Elena said quietly. "The shepherds gave me access to their knowledge, including the locations of other species who have been preparing for this threat. If you won't take my word for it, perhaps you'll listen to theirs." She activated the holographic display once more, showing the coordinates of the nearest allied species, the ethereals of the Veil Nebula. "They've been monitoring the enemy's movements for over 1,000 years. If we send a diplomatic mission to make contact, they can provide the evidence you need." Director Kim leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her skepticism. "How do we know this isn't a trap? For all we know, this could be an elaborate deception designed to lure our ships into hostile territory." Elena met her gaze steadily. "Because the alternative is to wait until the enemy arrives at our doorstep. By then, it will be too late to prepare." The debate that followed was intense and sometimes heated. Some council members argued for immediate action, convinced by the evidence Elena had presented. Others demanded more proof, unwilling to commit human resources to what might be an elaborate hoax. The discussion continued for hours, with Elena fielding questions and objections from every angle. Finally, Admiral Morrison called for a vote. "The motion before us is to authorize a diplomatic mission to the Veil Nebula to make contact with the species Captain Vasquez has identified as the ethereals." All in favor. The vote was close, but Elena's evidence had been persuasive enough to sway a narrow majority. The mission would proceed, but with limited resources and strict operational parameters. Elena would lead the expedition aboard the Defiance, but she would be accompanied by a full diplomatic team and a squadron of escort vessels. As the council session ended, Elena felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. The skepticism she had faced here would be nothing compared to the challenges that lay ahead. Director Kim approached her as the chamber emptied. "Captain, I have to ask, do you really believe what you told us in there about the enemy being entropy itself?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I believe that the universe is full of forces beyond our current understanding. Whether the enemy is literally entropy or something else that appears similar, the threat is real. I've seen what it can do, felt its influence. We ignore it at our peril." Kim nodded slowly. "I'll be monitoring your mission with great interest. If you find proof of what you claim, it will change everything we know about the nature of reality itself." Elena left the council chamber with mixed emotions. She had secured authorization for the mission, but she knew that many of the council members remained unconvinced. The real test would come when they made contact with the ethereals and discovered whether the shepherd's information was accurate. The preparation for the mission took 2 weeks. Elena found herself working with a diverse team of diplomats, scientists, and military personnel, each bringing their own expertise to the task. The lead diplomat, Ambassador Patricia Chen, was a seasoned negotiator who had helped establish humanity's first trade agreements with the Zephyrians. The scientific team was led by Dr. Marcus Webb, a xenobiologist who had made groundbreaking discoveries about alien life forms. The military escort consisted of 3 frigates from the Earth Defense Force, each equipped with the latest defensive systems and crewed by volunteers who had specifically requested to join the mission. Elena was touched by their dedication, knowing that they were venturing into completely unknown territory. Based on nothing more than her word, the journey to the Veil Nebula took 18 days, during which Elena found herself constantly reviewing the information the shepherds had provided. The data was vast and complex, containing details about dozens of species and their interactions with the mysterious enemy. The more she studied it, the more convinced she became that humanity was facing a threat unlike anything they had ever encountered. The Veil Nebula was a region of space that had been considered uninhabitable by human standards. The dense clouds of gas and dust made sensor readings difficult, and the high levels of radiation would be lethal to most known forms of life. But according to the shepherds' information, the ethereals had adapted to these conditions, using the nebula's unique properties to hide from the enemy's detection. As they approached the nebula's edge, Elena felt a familiar sense of anticipation. This was the moment of truth, when they would discover whether the shepherds' information was accurate, or whether they had been led into a trap. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Wong from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from within the nebula. It's like nothing I've seen before." Elena studied the displays, noting the strange patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some unseen force. "Any sign of hostile activity?" "Negative, Captain. Whatever it is, it doesn't appear to be weapons related. It's more like a beacon of some kind." Elena made a decision that would prove crucial to the mission's success. "All ships, maintain formation and follow my lead. We're going in." The fleet entered the nebula slowly, their sensors straining to penetrate the dense clouds of gas and dust. Elena watched the displays anxiously, knowing that they were completely blind to any threats that might be lurking in the murk. The radiation levels were climbing steadily, forcing them to activate their emergency shielding. "Captain," Wong called out, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm detecting artificial structures ahead. Massive ones." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. On screen, the main display showed a sight that defied description. Floating in the heart of the nebula was a city made of pure energy, its spires reaching hundreds of kilometers into the surrounding gas clouds. The structure seemed to be alive, pulsing with patterns of light that reminded Elena of the organic designs on the Black Ship. "My God," whispered Ambassador Chen, "it's beautiful." Elena had to agree. The city was unlike anything in human experience, a testament to the power of a civilization that had learned to harness the fundamental forces of the universe. But it was also clearly artificial, created by intelligence rather than natural processes. "Captain," Wong reported, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything Elena had ever heard. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, as if the nebula itself was speaking. But the words were clear and unmistakably welcoming. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have been expecting you." Elena found her voice. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Defiance. We come seeking the ethereals, hoping to establish diplomatic relations." "We are the ethereals, Captain Vasquez. We have watched your journey with great interest. The shepherds spoke truly when they said you would come. Please, dock your vessels with our city. We have much to discuss." Elena looked around the bridge, seeing the same mixture of awe and apprehension in her crew's faces. This was the moment they had been working toward, the proof that the shepherds' information was accurate. But it was also the beginning of a new chapter in human history, one that would test their species in ways they had never imagined. "Acknowledged," Elena replied. "We accept your invitation." The docking process was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Instead of physical contact, their ships were somehow absorbed into the energy matrix of the city, becoming part of its structure while maintaining their integrity. Elena could feel the artificial gravity adjusting to accommodate human physiology, and the atmospheric readings showed a perfectly breathable environment. The ethereals themselves were a revelation. They appeared as beings of pure energy, their forms shifting and flowing like living light, but they were clearly intelligent, and their ability to communicate suggested a level of technological sophistication that dwarfed even the shepherds. "You are troubled, Captain Vasquez," the lead ethereal observed. You have seen the darkness that approaches, felt its whispers in your mind. This is why you have come so far to seek us." Elena nodded, feeling exposed under the creature's ethereal gaze. "The shepherds told us that you've been monitoring the enemy's movements. We need to know what we're facing." Indeed we have. For over 1,000 years, we have watched the Devourer's influence spread across the galaxy. It is a force of pure entropy, seeking to reduce all order to chaos. It has consumed 17 civilizations in the past millennium, each one falling. To its whispers of despair and division, Elena felt her blood run cold. 17 civilizations? How is that possible? We would have detected such massive destruction, would you? The ethereal asked. The Devourer does not destroy through violence, but through corruption. It turns civilizations against themselves, convincing them that their greatest enemies are their own kind. By the time the destruction is complete, there is nothing left but empty worlds and the echo of what once was. Elena thought about the implications. If the enemy could corrupt entire civilizations without leaving obvious traces, it meant that the threat was far more insidious than she had imagined. How do we fight something like that? By understanding its nature, the ethereal replied. The Devourer feeds on negative emotions, fear, hatred, despair. It seeks out the divisions within civilizations and exploits them, turning natural conflicts into destructive wars. But it has a weakness. It cannot corrupt those who truly understand its nature. Elena felt a glimmer of hope. So knowledge is our weapon. Knowledge is the beginning, but not the end. True resistance requires unity, not just of purpose but of spirit. The Devourer's greatest power is its ability to isolate individuals, to make them believe that they are alone in their struggle. But when beings truly unite, when they share not just goals but understanding, the Devourer's influence weakens. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the same realization dawning in their faces. This was why the shepherds had chosen humanity, not because they were the strongest or most advanced species, but because they had the capacity to unite others, to forge bonds that transcended individual differences. "What do you need from us?" Elena asked. "We need you to do what you do best," the ethereal replied. "We need you to unite the galaxy's species against the common threat. The Devourer is stirring, and its influence is already spreading. Within a decade, it will be strong enough to begin its final assault on the remaining civilizations." Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders once more. How many species are we talking about? 47 civilizations. Remain untouched by the Devourer's influence. Each has its own strengths and weaknesses, its own reasons for joining or rejecting an alliance. You must bring them together. Forge a bond strong enough to withstand the Devourer's attempts to divide them. The task seemed impossible, but Elena had faced impossible odds before. "We'll need help. Humanity doesn't have the resources to contact 47 different species, let alone convince them to join an alliance." "Help you will have," the ethereal assured her. "The shepherds have prepared for this moment for millennia. They have agents among many species, individuals who have been quietly preparing for the day when the call would come. But the initiative must come from humanity. You are the catalyst that will bring the alliance together." Elena felt a surge of determination. "Then we'll do it. But I need to know everything about the Devourer, its methods, its weaknesses. We can't fight an enemy we don't understand." "Understanding will come with time," the ethereal replied. "But first, you must see what you are truly fighting against. We will show you the fate of the Korthani Empire, the most recent civilization to fall to the Devourer's influence." The energy city round them shifted, its walls becoming transparent to reveal the void beyond. But instead of the nebulas swirling gases, Elena saw a scene that made her blood run cold. A dead solar system, its planets reduced to lifeless husks, floated in the darkness. The star itself was dim and dying, its energy somehow drained away. The Korthani were a proud species, the ethereal explained. They had built an empire that spanned a dozen star systems, their technology rivaling that of the precursors. But they were also divided, torn by ancient rivalries and conflicting ideologies. The Devourer exploited these divisions, turning their greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. Elena watched in horror as the vision showed the final days of the Korthani Empire. Brother fought against brother, entire fleets turning their weapons on each other. The advanced technology that should have protected them became the instrument of their destruction. The Devourer didn't need to lift a finger, the ethereal continued. It simply whispered to the right individuals, planted the seeds of doubt and suspicion. Within a generation, the Korthani had destroyed themselves so thoroughly that nothing remained but empty worlds and the echo of what once was. Elena felt sick. How many people died? Billions. An entire civilization, reduced to nothing by their own hands. This is what awaits every species in the galaxy if the Devourer is not stopped. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the same horror and determination in their faces. This was why they had come so far, why they had risked everything to make contact with the ethereals. The threat was real, and it was coming for them all. What do we need to do? Elena asked. Return to your people, the ethereal replied. Share what you have learned. Begin the work of forging the alliance. But remember, Captain Vasquez, the Devourer's influence is subtle. It will try to turn your own people against you. To make them believe that you are the threat, you must be prepared for betrayal from those you trust most. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How do we protect ourselves? By remembering what makes you human, the ethereal said. Your capacity for hope, your refusal to accept defeat, your ability to find light in the darkest places. These are the qualities that make you immune to the Devourer's whispers. Hold fast to them, and you will prevail. The vision faded, and Elena found herself back in the energy city. But the knowledge of what they faced remained, burning in her mind like a brand. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people who were counting on her to protect them from a threat. They couldn't even imagine. We'll need ships, Elena said. More than just the Defiance. Ships you will have, the ethereal assured her. The shepherds have prepared for this moment. Hidden throughout human space are shipyards and factories, ready to begin production of vessels designed specifically to fight the Devourer. But remember, the most important battles will not be fought with weapons, but with words and ideas. Elena nodded, understanding the weight of what lay ahead. How long do we have? The Devourer's influence is already spreading, the ethereal replied. We estimate that you have perhaps 5 years before it begins its final assault. Enough time to forge the alliance, if you are successful. But failure means the end of all organized life in the galaxy. The magnitude of the task was overwhelming, but Elena felt the familiar surge of determination that had carried her through every challenge of her career. Then we'd better get started. The journey back to Earth was different from the trip out. Elena's ships carried with them not just information, but proof of the threat they faced. The ethereals had provided them with recordings of the Devourer's influence, showing how it had corrupted other civilizations. More importantly, they had given them the tools to resist that influence, techniques for maintaining unity in the face of division. Elena spent the journey studying the information, preparing for the battles ahead. She knew that convincing the Earth government would be just the beginning. The real challenge would be uniting 47 different species, each with their own agendas and prejudices, into a force capable of standing against the Devourer. But as she watched the stars stream past the viewport, Elena felt a growing sense of hope. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and prevailed. They had survived the hegemony war, united the scattered colonies, and built a civilization that spanned dozens of star systems. If anyone could forge the alliance that would save the galaxy, it was humanity. The test was coming, and Elena Vasquez was ready to meet it head-on. The second phase of humanity's greatest challenge was about to begin. 6 months after the encounter with the ethereals, Elena stood in the newly constructed command center of Haven Station, humanity's first joint diplomatic and military facility. Designed specifically for the coming war, the station hung in the void between Earth and Mars, its sleek lines a testament to the fusion of human engineering and alien technology. Through the observation ports, she could see the construction yards where the new fleet was taking shape, ships that bore no resemblance to anything humanity had built before. But Elena's attention was focused on the holographic display before her, showing the current status of the alliance building effort. Of the 47 civilizations they needed to unite, only 12 had agreed to join the coalition. 3 had refused outright, and the rest remained undecided. Time was running out, and the Devourer's influence was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. "Captain," came the voice of Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Elena's chief diplomatic advisor. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Nexus Collective. They're requesting an immediate meeting." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. The Nexus Collective was one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, a confederation of machine intelligences that had remained aloof from galactic politics for centuries. If they were reaching out, it could be a breakthrough or a catastrophe. "Put them through," Elena ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing the angular features of a Nexus Prime, one of the Collective's governing entities. Its metallic face was expressionless, but Elena had learned to read the subtle variations in its optical sensors that indicated emotional states. "Captain Vasquez," the Prime began, its voice carrying the characteristic harmonic distortion of machine speech. "We have monitored your efforts to forge an alliance against the entity you term the Devourer. We find your proposition intriguing." Elena felt a surge of hope. "I'm pleased to hear that. Prime, we would welcome the Collective's participation in the alliance." "Participation is not the correct term," the Prime replied. "We do not participate. We analyze, we calculate, we decide. And our calculations indicate that your alliance has a 23.7% probability of success." Elena's hope dimmed. Those odds seem pessimistic. Pessimistic is a human concept. We deal in probabilities, not emotions. The Devourer's influence grows stronger each day. Already, we have detected its presence in 17 star systems, corrupting the civilizations you seek to unite. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. 17 systems. Our intelligence suggested the spread was much slower. "Your intelligence is flawed," the Prime stated matter-of-factly. "The Devourer's influence is exponential, not linear. Each corrupted civilization becomes a vector for further corruption. At current rates, it will achieve critical mass within 18 months. The timeline Elena had been working with was suddenly compressed from years to months. "What do you recommend?" "We recommend that you accept the inevitable. The Devourer cannot be stopped by conventional means. However, the Collective has developed a contingency plan." Elena felt her blood run cold. "What kind of contingency?" "We have prepared to transfer the consciousness of selected individuals from each species to secure digital matrices. When the Devourer completes its work, these matrices will be activated, preserving the essence of galactic civilization in a form immune to the entity's influence." The implications were staggering. The Nexus Collective was essentially proposing to abandon the physical universe and retreat into a digital realm. "You're talking about giving up, about letting the Devourer win." "We are talking about survival," the Prime corrected. "The Devourer feeds on physical existence, on the entropy of material systems. In the digital realm, it cannot reach us." Elena felt her temper flare. "So your solution is to run away and hide while entire civilizations are destroyed?" "Our solution is to preserve what matters most: consciousness, knowledge, the accumulated wisdom of billions of years of evolution. The physical universe is temporary. Captain Vasquez, consciousness is eternal." Elena looked around the command center, seeing the same mixture of horror and determination in her staff's faces. This was exactly the kind of thinking that would doom them all. "I don't accept that. The universe is worth fighting for, not abandoning. Then you will fail," the Prime stated simply. "But the Collective respects your commitment to an impossible cause. We will provide you with the locations of 3 hidden precursor facilities. Perhaps their technology will improve your odds." The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at the coordinates that had appeared on her display. 3 precursor facilities, each potentially containing technology that could change the course of the war. But the knowledge came with the bitter taste of the Collective's withdrawal from the Alliance. "Captain," Dr. Chen said quietly, "the Collective's intelligence network is the most sophisticated in the galaxy. If they're saying we only have 18 months, then we make the most of the time we have." Elena replied firmly. "Contact the fleet commanders. I want search teams dispatched to all 3 precursor sites immediately, and send a message to all allied civilizations. Emergency summit on Haven Station in 72 hours. As her staff moved to carry out her orders, Elena found herself staring At the construction yards outside, the new ships being built, there were marvels of engineering, incorporating technology from a dozen different civilizations. But would they be enough? The Devourer had destroyed the precursors, and their technology had been far more advanced than anything the current alliance possessed. The emergency summit convened in Haven Station's main conference chamber, a vast space designed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies of the allied species. Elena looked around the assembled delegates, seeing representatives from the Ethereals, the Zephyrians, the Kepher, and 9 other civilizations that had committed to the alliance. The situation has changed, Elena began without preamble. The Devourer's influence is spreading faster than we anticipated. We may have as little as 18 months before it achieves critical mass. The reaction was immediate and intense. The Zephyrian delegate, a proud warrior poet named Thakmer, rose to his feet. This is unacceptable. We were promised years to prepare, not months. The universe rarely grants us the time we need. Elena replied, we must work with what we have. The ethereal representative, a shimmering being of pure energy, spoke next. The Nexus Collective's withdrawal is a significant loss. Their computational resources would have been invaluable in coordinating the Alliance's efforts. Elena nodded grimly. We'll have to find another way. But there is hope. The Collective provided us with the locations of 3 precursor facilities. If we can unlock their secrets, we might find the key to defeating the Devourer. Or we might find nothing but empty ruins, muttered the Kepher delegate, a small, insectoid being whose species was known for its pessimism. The precursors failed. Captain Vasquez, what makes you think we can succeed where they could not? Elena felt the familiar surge of human stubbornness. Because we're not fighting alone. The precursors tried to face the Devourer in isolation. We're building something they never had, a true alliance of equals. The debate that followed was intense and sometimes heated. Several species expressed doubts about the compressed timeline, and actually withdrew from the alliance entirely. But the core group remained committed, and by the end of the summit, they had agreed to an accelerated schedule of preparation. Elena's first priority was the precursor facilities. She led the expedition to the nearest site herself, taking the Defiance and a small fleet of escort vessels to a system that had been empty. For over 10,000 years, the facility was hidden within an asteroid field, its presence masked by technology that was still beyond human understanding. The interior of the facility was a marvel of precursor engineering. Vast halls filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light, chambers containing machinery that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Elena and her team moved through the complex with the reverence of archaeologists, entering a pharaoh's tomb. Captain, called out Dr. Marcus Webb, the expedition's chief scientist, you need to see this. Elena followed him to a chamber that seemed to exist at the intersection of multiple realities. The walls were covered in symbols that shifted and changed as she watched, and in the center of the room stood a device that defied description. It was roughly spherical, but its surface seemed to fold in on itself in ways that made Elena's eyes water. What is it? She asked. Near as we can tell, it's some kind of quantum manipulator, Webb replied. The precursors used it to alter the fundamental constants of reality within a localized area. Imagine being able to change the speed of light, or the strength of gravity, or even the flow of time itself. Elena felt a chill of recognition. Temporal manipulation, that's how they fought the Devourer. They were trying to change the past, to prevent its emergence, and they failed, Webb said grimly. The temporal paradoxes generated by their efforts may have actually made the Devourer stronger. That's why it was able to destroy them in the end. Elena stared at the device, understanding both its potential and its terrible danger. Can we use it? Theoretically, yes, but the risks are enormous. Any attempt to alter the timeline could have catastrophic consequences. We could end up making things worse, not better. Elena made a decision that would define the rest of the war. Then we don't use it to change the past. We use it to change the present. If we can alter the fundamental constants of reality in the area where the Devourer is strongest, we might be able to weaken it enough to destroy it. The second and third precursor facilities yielded similar treasures. A massive shipyard capable of constructing vessels from pure energy. powered by the zero-point fluctuations of the quantum vacuum, a communications ray that could transmit messages instantaneously across the entire galaxy, ignoring the normal limitations of light speed, and most importantly, a complete database of the Devourer's nature and weaknesses. Elena spent weeks studying the precursor records, learning about the enemy they faced. The Devourer was indeed a force of pure entropy, but it was not invincible. It had weaknesses, vulnerabilities that could be exploited by those who understood its nature. It feeds on despair, Elena explained to the assembled Alliance leaders. But it's also dependent on it. If we can maintain hope, unity, and purpose in the face of its influence, we can starve it of the energy it needs to maintain its coherence. The ethereal representative shimmered with what Elena had learned to recognize as approval. The shepherds spoke truly when they said humanity possessed the qualities needed to defeat the Devourer. Your species' refusal to accept defeat is exactly what we need. But even as the Alliance prepared for war, Elena could see the signs of the Devourer's influence spreading. Reports came in from across the galaxy of civilizations turning on themselves, of ancient allies becoming bitter enemies. The hegemony, humanity's old enemy, had already fallen to internal strife. The once proud dominion of swords had devolved into a collection of warring city-states. Elena watched the reports with growing alarm. The Devourer's influence was subtle but devastating. It didn't need to attack directly, it simply amplified the existing divisions within each civilization until they tore themselves apart. "Captain," Dr. Chen said during one of their daily briefings, "we're receiving disturbing reports from Earth. There are protests in the major cities, people demanding that we abandon the Alliance and focus on humanity's own defense." Elena felt her heart sink. It's starting here too. The Devourer's influence, almost certainly. It's trying to isolate us, to make us abandon our allies and fight alone. We can't let that happen. But stopping the Devourer's influence proved to be easier said than done. Elena watched in horror as the Alliance began to fracture. The Vorthic Confederacy withdrew after a terrorist attack on their home world, convinced that it was the work of their allies. The Crystal Singers accused the Zephyrians of sabotage, while the Zephyrians insisted they were being framed. Elena found herself fighting a war on multiple fronts, against the Devourer's direct influence, against the paranoia and suspicion it bred, and against the growing voices within humanity that demanded she abandon her alien allies. The pressure was enormous, and she could feel herself beginning to crack under the strain. It was during the darkest hour that Elena made the discovery that would change everything. While reviewing the precursor records for the 100th time, she noticed something that everyone else had missed. The Devourer wasn't just feeding on despair, it was also learning from it. Each civilization it consumed taught it new ways to corrupt others, new strategies for sowing discord and division. It's not just a force of entropy, Elena realized. It's intelligent, it's adapting, evolving, becoming more sophisticated with each victory. The implications were staggering. If the Devourer was learning from its successes, then it would become harder to defeat with each passing day. But it also meant that it might be vulnerable to strategies it hadn't encountered before. Elena's revelation came at a crucial moment. The Alliance was on the verge of collapse, and several member civilizations were openly discussing withdrawal. But Elena had an idea, a desperate gambit that might just work. "We're going to do something the Devourer won't expect," she announced to the emergency session of the Alliance Council. "We're going to surrender." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Half the delegates began speaking at once, their voices raised in protest and confusion. Elena held up her hand for silence. "Not real surrender," she explained. "But we're going to make the Devourer think we've given up. We're going to stop fighting its influence, stop trying to maintain unity. We're going to let it believe it has." Juana, the ethereal representative, pulsed with uncertainty. "Explain your reasoning, Captain." "The Devourer feeds on conflict, on the struggle between order and chaos. But what if there's no struggle? What if we withdraw from the fight entirely? It might weaken itself trying to maintain its influence without any opposition to feed on." The plan was audacious and risky. Elena was asking the Alliance to abandon everything they had worked for, to let the Devourer believe it had achieved victory. But she was also asking them to trust her, to believe that humanity's unconventional approach might succeed. Where conventional warfare had failed, the vote was close. But Elena's reputation and the desperation of their situation carried the day. The Alliance agreed to implement her plan, codenamed False Dawn. All resistance to the Devourer's influence would cease. The member civilizations would withdraw from active cooperation, appearing to succumb to the paranoia and suspicion that the entity promoted. But beneath the surface, a different kind of preparation was taking place. Elena established a secret network of communication, using the precursor technology to maintain contact between the Alliance members. Without the Devourer's knowledge, small teams of volunteers from each species were trained in techniques for resisting the entity's influence, and hidden weapons caches were established throughout the galaxy. The hardest part was maintaining the deception. Elena had to watch as the Alliance appeared to crumble, as former allies turned on each other with manufactured hatred. She had to stand by as the Devourer's influence spread unchecked, consuming civilization after civilization. But she also watched for the signs that her plan was working. The first indication came 3 months into the False Dawn operation. The Devourer's influence, which had been growing exponentially, began to plateau. It was still spreading, but at a slower rate. The entity seemed to be struggling to maintain its coherence, without the constant conflict that had previously fed it. Elena's network reported similar observations from across the galaxy. The Devourer was still present, still dangerous, but it was also weakening. The false surrender had confused it, disrupted its carefully planned campaign of corruption. But Elena knew that the deception couldn't last forever. Eventually, the Devourer would realize what was happening and adapt its strategy. She had to act while the entity was still weakened, while the Alliance still existed in secret. The moment came when the Devourer made its first direct appearance in over a millennium. Instead of working through corrupted civilizations, it manifested physically in the core systems of the galaxy, a massive entity of pure darkness that consumed entire star systems. Elena watched the reports with grim satisfaction. The Devourer was desperate, abandoning its subtle approach in favor of direct assault. It was exactly what she had hoped for. All units, this is Captain Vasquez. She broadcast on the hidden network. Operation Dawn's Light is now in effect. All Alliance forces emerge from concealment and converge on the core systems. This is it, people. This is what we've been preparing for. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From across the galaxy, the hidden Alliance fleet emerged from their concealment. Ships that had been thought destroyed revealed themselves to be fully operational. Civilizations that had appeared to withdraw from the Alliance declared their continued loyalty. The Devourer's triumph was revealed to be an illusion. Elena led the charge aboard the Defiance, now equipped with weapons and shields built from precursor technology. Behind her came the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from 47 different species united in common cause. The sight was breathtaking, a testament to the power of cooperation over conflict. But even as the Alliance fleet advanced, Elena could see the challenge they faced. The Devourer was massive, its presence warping spacetime around it. It was surrounded by the twisted remains of corrupted civilizations. Their ships and weapons turned against the approaching Alliance. All ships, engage the enemy, Elena ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for our civilizations. We're fighting for the right of order to exist in the universe. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Alliance fleet used every weapon in their arsenal, from conventional explosives to reality-warping devices based on precursor technology. But the Devourer fought back, with the accumulated knowledge of every civilization it had consumed, using their own tactics against them. Elena found herself at the center of the storm, coordinating the efforts of 47 different species, while simultaneously fighting for her ship's survival. The Defiance shook under the impact of weapons that shouldn't have been able to exist, while her crew worked desperately to maintain their systems. Captain, Dr. Chen called out from the science station, "The quantum manipulator is ready. We can alter the fundamental constants in the Devourer's immediate vicinity." Elena made the decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Do it. Maximum temporal dilation in the Devourer's location. Slow it down relative to the rest of the universe. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Devourer's movements became sluggish, its attacks easier to avoid. But Elena could see that the entity was adapting, trying to compensate for the altered physics. They had bought themselves time, but not much. All ships, concentrate fire on the Devourer's core. Elena ordered, "We need to destroy it before it adapts to the temporal distortion." The Alliance fleet responded with everything they had. Weapons that could shatter planets, energy beams that could ignite stars, reality warpers that could erase matter from existence. The Devourer fought back desperately, but it was weakened by the deception and confused by the altered physics. Elena watched as cracks began to appear in the entity's structure. The Devourer was dying, its hold on the universe finally breaking. But she also knew that victory would come at a price. The temporal distortion was unstable, threatening to tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance, Elena ordered. Prepare for quantum cascade. Failure. The Alliance fleet retreated just as the Devourer's death throes triggered a massive explosion. The entity's destruction released all the energy it had absorbed over the millennia, creating a wave of pure creation that swept across the galaxy. Dead worlds bloomed with new life, while the corrupted civilizations found themselves free from the entity's influence. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the galaxy began to heal. The Devourer was gone, its reign of terror ended by the combined efforts of species that had learned to work together. Despite their differences, Captain, Dr. Chen said quietly, "We're receiving congratulations from across the galaxy. The Alliance held, we won." Elena nodded, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "Yes, we did. But the real victory isn't that we destroyed the Devourer. It's that we proved something that the universe had forgotten. That cooperation is stronger than conflict, that unity is more powerful than division." As the Defiance headed back to Haven Station, Elena looked out at the stars and saw them with new eyes. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of civilizations that had learned to work together, to put aside their differences in service of a greater good. The test was over, and humanity had passed. But more than that, they had shown the rest of the galaxy what was possible when different species chose to trust each other, to see past their differences to their common humanity. The third phase of the greatest test was complete, but Elena knew that the real work was just beginning. The galaxy would need to be rebuilt, the damaged civilizations restored, and the lessons learned from the war passed on to future generations. It would be a long and difficult process, but Elena was confident that the Alliance would endure. After all, they had already proven that nothing was impossible when free beings chose to stand together against the darkness. The silence after the Devourer's destruction was deafening. Across 47 star systems, beings who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of cosmic horror suddenly found themselves in a universe where the greatest threat to existence had simply ended. Elena stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the cleanup operations unfold across the debris field that had once been the Devourer's final manifestation. The entity's destruction had released waves of pure creative energy, the same force it had been consuming and corrupting for millennia. Now that energy was flowing back into the galaxy, healing wounds that had festered for 1,000 years. The preliminary reports are in, Admiral Korvik announced, his forearms holding multiple data tablets. The hegemony's military leader had become an unlikely ally during the final battle. Total casualties, 2.3 million across all fleets. Damaged vessels, 67% of the combined armada. But Elena, his voice carried wonder. The dead worlds are blooming again. Through the station's quantum sensors, Elena could see it happening in real time. Planets that had been lifeless rocks for centuries were suddenly sprouting with new growth. The Devourer's corruption was unraveling, replaced by an explosion of creativity that defied every law of physics she'd ever learned. "It's not just the planets," reported Dr. Yuki Chen, the quantum physicist who had helped decode the precursor technology. "The fundamental constants themselves are shifting. The universe is becoming more hospitable to life." The Devourer wasn't just consuming matter and energy, it was draining the very potential for existence to flourish. Elena nodded, still processing the magnitude of what they'd accomplished. The False Dawn strategy had worked beyond their wildest hopes. By feigning surrender and allowing the Devourer to concentrate its full attention on consuming what it believed to be the last organized resistance, they had created a moment of vulnerability. The entity's guard had dropped just long enough for the combined might of 47 civilizations to strike with precursor-enhanced weapons, but victory had come at a price that extended far beyond the battlefield casualties. 3 months after the battle, Elena found herself in the most unlikely position imaginable, de facto leader of a galactic civilization. The Galactic Council had been reformed with representatives from all 47 species, and by unanimous vote, they had elected her as the first chancellor of the new Galactic Alliance. "I'm a ship captain," she had protested during the ceremony. "I know how to run a crew, not a galaxy." Elder Voss of the Covenant had replied with what passed for a smile among his crystalline people. "You united 47 species against an impossible enemy. You convinced beings who had been enemies for millennia to fight side by side. You gave hope to a galaxy that had forgotten what hope looked like. If that doesn't qualify you to lead, what does?" Now, sitting in her new office aboard Haven Station, which had been expanded into a true galactic capital, Elena was beginning to understand the weight of that responsibility. The reports streaming across her desk painted a picture of a galaxy in transition. The Nexus Collective had returned, sheepishly admitting that their probability calculations had been wrong. Their leader, Node Prime, had actually apologized, something unprecedented in their species history. They were now contributing their vast computational power to the reconstruction efforts, their mechanical efficiency proving invaluable in coordinating relief efforts. Across thousands of worlds, the stellar hegemony had undergone a revolution. With the external threat gone, their warrior culture was adapting to focus on protection rather than conquest. Admiral Korvik had become their new leader, implementing reforms that emphasized honor in service rather than glory in battle. But the most dramatic change was happening among the youngest species, those who had never known a galaxy without the Devourer's threat. They were calling themselves the Liberation Generation, and they were asking questions that their elders had never dared to voice. "Why did we accept that war was inevitable?" asked Ambassador Zara of the Void Walkers, a species that had spent centuries in nomadic exile. "Why didn't we try to work together before the crisis forced us to?" Elena had no easy answers. The galaxy was grappling with the realization that they had wasted centuries on petty conflicts, while a greater threat loomed over them all. The shame of it was almost as overwhelming as the joy of victory. The discovery came 6 months after the battle, deep in the archives of the third precursor facility. Dr. Chen had been working around the clock to understand the technology that had made their victory possible when she stumbled upon something that changed everything. "They knew," she announced to the emergency council session, her voice trembling with excitement and horror. "The precursors knew the Devourer would come. They built these facilities specifically to be found by the species that would face it." The holographic display showed the translated text of what could only be described as a message from the distant past. To those who read this, "We are the architects of the third spiral, and we have seen the pattern. Every spiral of galactic evolution faces the same test: the hunger that devours meaning, the entropy that consumes hope. Some spirals fall to it, others transcend it. We have prepared these gifts for you, but know that technology alone cannot save you. Only unity can overcome the hunger. Only cooperation can defeat despair. If you have found this message, you have already proven yourselves worthy of the gift we offer." The message continued with detailed instructions for something called the Genesis Protocol, a way to use the same reality-altering technology that had defeated the Devourer to literally reshape the galaxy, not just healing the damage, but creating something entirely new. "They're offering us the chance to become the fourth spiral," Elena realized, "to transform not just our worlds, but the very nature of existence in this galaxy." The implications were staggering. They could create a galaxy where war was literally impossible, where scarcity was a forgotten concept, where every species could flourish according to their nature without conflict. But the message included a warning: the power to reshape reality is the power to impose your will upon existence itself. Use it wisely, or become the very thing you fought to defeat. The debate over the Genesis Protocol raged for months. Some species, led by the hegemony, wanted to use it to create a perfectly ordered galaxy where conflict was impossible. Others, influenced by the Covenant's mystical traditions, argued for a more hands-off approach that would heal the damage, but leave the future to develop naturally. Elena found herself serving as mediator between dozens of different visions for the galaxy's future. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humans, the youngest spacefaring species, were being asked to help guide the collective destiny of civilizations that had been exploring the stars for millennia. "What makes you think we have the right to decide?" she asked during one particularly heated session. "Just because we came up with the strategy that defeated the Devourer doesn't mean we're qualified to reshape reality." "But that's exactly why you are qualified," replied Elder Voss. "Your species thinks differently than the rest of us. You see possibilities where we see only problems. You find hope where we find only despair. That perspective is what this galaxy needs." The breakthrough came when Elena realized they were asking the wrong question. Instead of debating what the galaxy should become, they needed to ask what each species needed to flourish. "The precursors didn't give us a tool to impose our will," she announced to the council. "They gave us a tool to enable everyone's will. We don't need to choose between order and chaos, between growth and stability. We can create a galaxy that has room for all of it." The solution they developed was uniquely human in its approach. Instead of one perfect galaxy, they would create multiple zones of reality, each shaped by the needs and desires of the species that inhabited them. The hegemony could have their ordered warrior paradise. The Covenant could have their mystical realm of spiritual growth. The Nexus Collective could have their perfect logical construct, but the zones would be connected, allowing for trade, communication, and voluntary migration between different ways of existence. It was messy, complicated, and far from perfect, but it was free. 1 year after the Devourer's defeat, Elena stood once again on the observation deck of Haven Station. But now she was looking out at a galaxy transformed. The Genesis Protocol had been activated 3 months ago, and the results were beyond anything they had imagined. The dead systems were not just alive again, they were thriving with new forms of existence that had never been seen before. The Devourer's corruption had been replaced by zones of pure creative potential, where thoughts could become reality and dreams could take physical form. The various species were adapting in their own ways. The hegemony had claimed a cluster of systems where their warrior culture could flourish in eternal, honorable conflict against constructs that provided worthy challenges without actual death. The Covenant had found their spiritual realm among the nebulae, where consciousness could exist in pure energy form. The Nexus Collective had built their perfect logical universe in the galactic core, where every equation balanced and every system ran with flawless efficiency. But the most remarkable development was happening in the spaces between the frontier zones where different realities touched. New cultures were emerging, hybrid civilizations that combined the best aspects of multiple species. The children of these unions were something entirely new, beings who could exist in multiple reality states simultaneously. "Any regrets?" asked Marcus, joining her at the observation window. Her old first officer had become the head of the new Galactic Exploration Service, leading missions to chart the transformed galaxy. Elena smiled, the first genuine smile she'd worn in months. About saving the galaxy, not really. About becoming a politician. Every day you could step down. Marcus pointed out, "The council system is stable now. They don't need you anymore, don't they?" Elena gestured to the reports on her desk. "We've got 17 new species that have emerged from the transformed systems. 3 of them are asking for protection from the others. The hegemony is complaining that their warrior paradise is too easy. The Covenant thinks the Nexus Collective is trying to logic bomb their mystical realm, and somehow I'm the one everyone comes to when they need a neutral arbitrator. That's because you're good at it," Marcus said. "You see the patterns that others miss. You find the solutions that work for everyone." Elena nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. "The precursors left us more than just technology, you know. They left us a warning. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Genesis Protocol gave us godlike abilities, but it also gave us the responsibility to use them wisely. And are we? Elena looked out at the galaxy, their galaxy, shaped by the choices they had made together. Ask me in 1,000 years. But for now, I think we're doing okay. The ceremony marking the second anniversary of the Devourer's defeat was held simultaneously across all 47 home systems, connected by quantum communication networks that had been impossible. Before the reality restructuring, Elena's speech was broadcast to trillions of beings across dozens of different reality zones. 2 years ago, we faced a choice, she began. Her words automatically translated into hundreds of languages and several forms of pure concept sharing. We could surrender to the inevitable, accept that the universe was hostile and that cooperation was impossible, or we could choose to believe that together we could achieve something that none of us could accomplish alone. The response was thunderous, even across the vast distances of space. But Elena's next words were quieter, more personal. The Devourer is gone, but the choice remains. Every day, we must choose cooperation over conflict, hope over despair, growth over stagnation. The galaxy we've built isn't perfect, it never will be, but it's ours, and it's free, and it's full of infinite possibility. She paused, looking directly into the camera that would carry her words across the galaxy, to the species that will come after us, because there will be others, born from the creative zones or emerging from the unexplored regions. Know this. The galaxy you inherit was shaped by beings who chose to work together despite their differences. We fought not to conquer, but to protect. We built not to control, but to enable. We chose unity not because it was easy, but because it was right. The ceremony continued for hours, with representatives from each species sharing their own perspectives on the transformation. But Elena's thoughts were already turning to the future. The long-range sensors had detected something new in the void between galaxies' patterns that suggested other spirals, other civilizations, perhaps even other devourers. The universe was vast, and their corner of it was just the beginning. But that was a challenge for tomorrow. Today, they had something that no generation before them had possessed, a galaxy united not by fear, but by choice. From the personal journal of Elena Vasquez, first Chancellor of the new Galactic Alliance, written on the 5th anniversary of the Devourer's defeat. I never wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be an explorer, to see new worlds and meet new species. Funny how life works out. The galaxy today is unrecognizable from the one I grew up in. We have cities that exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously, planets where the laws of physics are more like suggestions, and beings who can reshape reality with a thought. The younger generation takes it all for granted, the way I once took starlight for granted. But what strikes me most is how familiar it all still feels. The hegemony still argues about military protocols. The Covenant still debates the nature of existence. The Nexus Collective still calculates probabilities for everything. Some things, it seems, transcend even reality manipulation. The threat reports still cross my desk daily. Pirates who've learned to use probability manipulation to always escape. Cults that worship the Devourer's memory. Political movements that want to use the Genesis Protocol to create their own personal utopias. The galaxy is still dangerous, still chaotic, still full of beings who would rather fight than cooperate. But here's what's different. We face these challenges together. When the Void Pirate King started raiding shipping lanes with his reality-distorting fleet, 17 species volunteered to help stop him. When the hegemony's warrior paradise started producing berserkers who couldn't distinguish between simulation and reality, the Covenant offered to help heal them. When the Nexus Collective's perfect logical universe started creating paradoxes that threatened to crash local spacetime, even the chaos-worshipping entropy dancers pitched in to help stabilize it. The precursors called us the fourth spiral, but I think they were wrong. We're not the fourth of anything. We're the first galactic civilization to choose cooperation over conquest. The first to see diversity as strength rather than weakness. The first to look at the vast darkness between the stars and see not an enemy to be conquered, but a frontier to be explored together. Today, I'm announcing my retirement from the Chancellorship. The galaxy doesn't need me anymore. It's learned to lead itself. My successor will be chosen not by appointment or inheritance, but by the collective will of 47 species working together. Whoever they choose will face challenges I can't imagine, but they'll face them with the combined wisdom and strength of an entire galaxy. As for me, I'm going back to what I've always loved most. The new exploration service has detected signs of intelligent life in the Magellanic Clouds. The journey will take 50 years, even with our enhanced technology. By the time we arrive, the galaxy will have moved on, grown, changed in ways I can't predict. But I know one thing for certain: it will still be free, because that's what we chose 5 years ago in the darkest hour. Not just to survive, but to thrive. Not just to defeat the devourer, but to become something worthy of the victory. The fourth spiral, the first truly united galaxy in the known universe. It has a nice ring to it. End log. The memorial to the devourer's victims stands at the heart of Haven Station, a crystalline structure that captures and reflects the light of every star in the galaxy. Inscribed on its base, in the languages of all 47 species, are the words that have become the unofficial motto of the new Galactic Alliance. In darkness, we found light. In division, we found unity. In despair, we found hope. Together, we found tomorrow. The galaxy turned and turned again, and life continued its eternal dance among the stars. But now, for the first time in cosmic history, it danced to a rhythm of its own choosing. The fourth spiral had begun.